Please tell family, Muslims and people of the Kiowan and Sinna Masjid and Muslim communities restructuring. Shukran. Islam does not support slavery. And teach, do not oppress, do not accept oppression, do not sell self into slavery, no sex slavery. In Islam, commerce and trade are important, but does not include people or the sexual body. The Prophet created the first Umayyad Caliphate and ended practices that were exploitative at the national, state, social, community, and family level with the way of life Islam. The word slave in the Quran is used in many ways, but Muslims are never told to do slavery, and never told actively support slavery. Guidance on slaves is talking of existing slavery in the world, and how people held are treated. People might ask, why does the Quran not say there will be no slavery? People find many other names to call oppression. In the Quran, people are told, do not make yourself or others a slave, that oppression any kind is wrong, do not accept oppression, to defend people from oppression. And by living in the world with all people, Muslims do not ignore oppression being done to others. In the time of the Prophet to SWS, the majority slaves were from tribe war debt slavery, not racial. The word slave is not the name given to people held by Muslims. The Quran call people held by Muslims, those held by right hand, because different temporary conditions causing being held. It included people freed from slavery repaying the money. Combatants in war, non-combatants directly involved in war, refugees, asylum seekers, people bounded for debt, and those who commit a crime, and might be allowed to work in repayment. None of these are slaves in the general idea, and have lawful rights similar to free people. And all can regain freedom in lawful fair time, and condition. All people held as slaves by Muslims were put under the title. The Prophet, through the Quran and his Sunnah, taught his followers and preached to all man and woman to free the slave, be merciful to those held, because the holder could suffer the same oppression. To treat those held with kindness and justice. To pay people including the held for their work, and do not overburden, not give harmful work. Provide them with food, water, clothing of the quality the holder use. To shelter them reasonably. Such ideas challenged slave holding. Defend people from oppression slavery. To educate that Allah created every person free. Not to oppress, enslave, and to set people free, and prevent the things that create oppression. Charity and caring for others. Not getting into debt and stop false practices to get people in debt. People should not accept oppression, do not make self-slave, do not sell self or family, do not kill self or family. The Prophet preached and taught at slave markets, and all places freedom, no slavery, no oppression, to get people of any belief to free people of any belief. And people should not oppress, sell people, to treat people with kindness and justice. And taught people to be free, not accept causes of slavery. Islam teach people not to support any form of practice that subjugate the mind, body, soul, etc. The Sahaba, close followers of the Prophet, and Muslims followed the Prophet, and did the same. Concubine. In Islam, no concubines. Women not married but sex had with, sometimes held as captive. Quran verse of the Prophet and his married partners was revealed after the Prophet's marriage to his last woman partner, and identify all woman partners of the Prophet and SWS as married partners, none were concubines. In Quran, those held by the right hand are in verse after the people can marry, and have to marry to be married to have sex. Eunuchs and Muslims do not support people with their sexual organs reduced or stopped from working, cut off, castrated is forbidden haram. History, idea of Muslims in time of the Prophet raiding to take captives is a lie in history, and never happened. After the Prophet, Muslims enslaving people was a crime, unjust. Muslims that did slave raiding used lies to justify enslaving people, including ideas of war, because Islam Quran does not directly allow. Many people enslaved were Muslims that defend their self and people of other beliefs. Theft and corruption in the land, taking people into oppression, slavery, or sent to slavery in a foreign place, or using the excuse of war to make people slaves. In the Quran, taking people into oppression, slavery, can be under the crimes theft and corruption in the land and other, and is haram, unlawful, and stopped by educating people of their respect, equality, not accepting oppression, and defend self others to stop oppression. And Muslim people stopping oppression, and defending people from oppression. Muslims did not support slave markets, but did get people to set free the people they held by faith, it being a good deed, and buying the people to free. People bought to free, Islam encouraged set free with no repayment of money or work time. By free as limited money, people freed could agree to a set time to repay, or some work or service to repay time, just not oppressive. Muslims' courts did repay good act of freeing people. Law enforcement, military, and Muslim law court did set people held free with no debt or time. If taken unlawfully in taking or unjust fighting set free. People called slave that served Prophet SWS Sahaba, if history hadith accurate, servants maids were in agreement to be freed soon or free, but serving to pay off money or fully free, and helpmaids working as a job and by own want. Law agreement by nations group can agree no slavery, no holding competence. Modern law follow similar in human rights, no slavery, and rules of war. Many law ideas influenced by Islam. Free are refugees and asylum seekers. Debtor can repay debt and not need to be held, helper can repay. Crime can use holding and repaying by money or work given. Lawfully, just protected. Combatants of war. Divine right, meaning God is on our side to do anything to the opposite side or might makes right or survival of the fittest. The Quran teach logical justice and fairness to others even when in conflict. Capturing people is not a belief of Islam, but in conflict or event causing need people example military in active event have lawful allowance to hold. And people under lawful condition take to real enforcement example active event law enforcement or military to find out what is happening. Muslims only fight in self-defense, or to protect defend people. Cue an allowance to have other side pay when giving them their competence is a form of reparations to recover resources lost in defense. It is logical but not mandatory. Taking competence off the field helped. The wounded, people lost, abandoned. Muslims do not leave to die. In war Muslims do not give Muslims jizya, because jizya is word identifying political agreement and monies from people of other beliefs including reparations in war. Muslims come to agreement use Quran and sinner and zakat is money Muslims pay. Blood money for loss was likely different. Murder or intentional killing sacrifice blood money is not paid because crime. Quran Muslims only hold people by allowance of Prophet leader, and leader is to know of all held. Quran holding only happen after all conflict end. People were not taken into holders' own private holding. People had to be seen by leadership, and the story of how they were taken from the battlefield known to correctly decade holding or not holding, tell their group to make arrangements getting or freeing. And location had to be safe, appropriate, follow laws of Islam, respect man, woman modesty. Many times people were held in official places, the treasury or other large building. With more developed government people were held in official places. The combatant that held the opposite side combatant make payment once, but not outside law of justice protected by law, court. No harm to body, mind, faith, no manipulation, no mind control, no sex. Marriage only by free choice, outside of direct event, all held known by leaders, and in place peaceful safe, no fear, no threat, no trick, no mind control, no oppression. Combatants freed by own side paying. Returning to their group competence and non-competence with no money or requirements was a do able if all sides agree. Severe imprisonment was not practiced by Nabi Muhammad and Muslims. Combatants could pay their own freedom, working to pay own freeing. Non-combatants if not in combat usually are not held, and if found free or freed when group found issue solved. If held similar to combatants same methods to free, combatants and non-combatant could only be given back, sold to family, or own side free, not owned, not held. And not sent to side, if harm, free to do as want. Prophet freed people after doing minor good work, or teaching a positive thing, and Muslims did same. Prophet freed people only for the good and mercy of Allah, and Muslims did the same. Hadiths of Prophet marrying directly after war show example of correct behavior he did as explained. Towns temporarily held during expedition Prophet, allowing some Muslims on expedition to marry is correct, it was Quran outside of event meaning not during fighting, peace, there was no harm, no fear. Further the people were free, no demand, no idea of war booty. Marriages were by free choice all were women previously married, and were not married. Quran Muslims cannot marry married women, cannot have sex with married women. Hadith of history of Sahaba doing in middle of event, with captives, is opposite of Quran and Prophet's actions. And are either by grading fake, or the event occurred, but wrong not example to justify doing. Example some companions on expedition marrying women captive by force, in conflict or married. Hadith or history saying Sahaba married in event, after and not with woman agreement or force, trick are again by grading fake or wrong action not example to justify doing. Or the hadith leave out details, for example some companions asked the Prophet if avoiding pregnancy, during sex with captives was allowed. If the hadith is not false. The Sahaba were following the laws of the Quran. Justice agreement. All groups, nations can agree if fighting or event, no holding, no pay, keep safe, and immediately return to own side. Selling people, paying off debt. If holder wanted to sell the held, there are numerous lawful protection to agreement of holding, self, family, property, same as free, with acknowledgement of condition. Again, most categories of held free, and cannot be sold. If sold, not slave market. By held choice, no harm, no separation, no change life, property, no taken away, no new agreement, only by held agreement, and law protection honoring time, pay given past meaningless. Protected by law and court. Marriage, Q and verse of partners lawful to marry, those held by right hand are in the next verse after partners lawful to marry, because temporary condition different than free. No sex outside marriage. No sex slavery, no allowance to marry by being captive, no threat, no trick.